Now, the rise of fintech, ladies and gentlemen, is transforming, in fact, the financial landscape, driving innovation and opening some new avenues for growth.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Today we explore how the fintech revolution is set to increase financial inclusion as well. And to talk about exactly this subject, we have a very esteemed panel put together who's going to be joining us in just a few minutes from now.
Well, absolutely. And Aisha, you know, this sector specifically, the fintech space has got potential to improve access to financial services and empower businesses as well. In India, in fact, needs a lot of focus on this sector to achieve the goal. That's the theme of our summit as well, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. If we have to power to the top 3 economies in the world, it has to be a very, very strong fintech backbone. So please, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together and welcome the co-founder and executive director of PB Fintech, Mr. Alok Bansal. Next up, we have the founder and executive vice chairman of InfoEdge, Mr. Sanjeev Bikhchandani. And to round up the experts, we are joined by co-founder and CTO of PhonePe, Mr. Rahul Shari. And this session is going to be moderated by Nikunj Dalmia. A huge round of applause, please, ladies and gentlemen.
Good evening, everyone. And this is the 10th edition of IEC. 10 years ago, startups in India were perhaps at a very incubation stage. Now they've become center stage. Startups in India have identified the problems, the solutions, and they've managed to scale it up. But this is our 10th edition, so we want to make it very special. And the guest is always on the right side of everybody, which is Mr. Sanjeev Bikhchandani. He had invested in Zomato. And after the first check, Zomato stock has gone up 2,200 times. Policy Bazaar, Alok would tell us better. The number, it's a few hundred times. So that's the fact I'm sharing with you. But there is one more fact which I'll share with you, that Mr. Bikhchandani, every time he comes on IEC, he will tell us that which is the next big investment he's doing. So for those who are planning to go, please come back, money making idea aane wala hai. Now I've introduced you so nicely.
You want me to answer that question? Next big investment, Abhi? We don't know. We invested in 120 startups since in the last 15 years. Of those 2 are Zomato and Policy Bazaar. The rest are, I think 70 or 80 are still alive. They are work in progress. We don't know yet, but time will tell.
I shall circle back to that question again. But if I may just first request you to just paint a landscape of the startup space for us. 10 years ago, it was at incubation. Now it is enjoying center stage.
Well, actually, if I look back, so I'm 61 now, and I began to work in industry in 1984, straight after college. So 40 saal ho gaye. In those 40 years, there has been a sea change in the Indian business landscape. In hindsight, it looks like a revolution, but actually it's an evolution. Most revolutions are evolutions, right? And if you look at it, a lot of value, a lot of employment growth, investment has gone into companies and industries that did not exist or barely existed in 1984. So IT services did not exist, barely existed. IT-enabled services did not exist. Internet did not exist. E-commerce did not exist. Mobile telephony did not exist. Mobile apps did not exist. Private sector airlines did not exist. Private sector banks barely existed. Private sector insurance companies did not exist. Digital payments did not exist. Right? None of that stuff existed. And it is, देखो 40 साल में बहुत कुछ हुआ है. And the truth is, a lot of this change has been driven by startups founded by first-generation entrepreneurs. Not all of it, but a lot of it. And therefore, startups actually are central to India's growth story over the last 40 years, and in all likelihood for the next 40 years. So Infosys was a startup in 84, HCL was a startup in 84. Look at the employment market cap today. They built India's brand, they built the IT industry. So company after company that are giant today was a startup at some point, maybe 20, 30, 40 years ago. I mean, Zomato has founded in 2008, listed in 2021, in the Sensex today. You're going to see more and more. So it's pretty clear that the giant companies, some of them, the giant companies of tomorrow, some of them are the startups of today. And therefore, startups are really important and central. Now, ये change, ये जो हुआ है, कहाँ से हुआ है? Number one, it's because there are many, many, many people who are trying to be entrepreneurs. So the number of founders has multiplied manifold. Second is there are role models and success stories. There are role models and success stories of people who've done it before. Okay. Third is there is money available. Fourth is there's talent. And fifth is there's enabling policy and regulation and frameworks by the government, especially in the last 10 years or 9 years since Startup India. So I think all of these things have led to this. I think it's very good that the government today recognizes this, that startups are central to India's growth story and is taking positive action. So ये सब हुआ है over the last 40 years and accelerated in the last 10 years. I'll stop here.
Alok, I remember Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, late Rakesh Jhunjhunwala once told me that when he started investing in the stock market, his mother told him, don't invest in stock market, beta shadi nahi hogi. So when you started your journey in the startup world, what advice did you get? And were you married that time?
Yeah, I was married, luckily. As Sanjeev mentioned, Policy Bazar journey started in 2008, and at that time, startup was still something which was not the preferred course of action for any corporate person per se, right? In fact, there are few of us in our batch at IIM who always thought about doing something of our own. And we had to create a list of companies that we want to apply to in order that, for the placements. And you will be surprised to know Times Group was number one. Because the sort of roles offered by Times Group when they came for PPT were really, really exciting. And they almost told us that, okay, you can go into, say, Patiala and open a FM channel and run it independently. And it was like, wow, that will be great experience. So somewhere there was always this thing at the back of the mind that you want to do something of your own, but what and when was not very clear. So you just keep on a lookout for opportunities. And the way to think about it at that time, at least in 2008, was that if it didn't work out, you can always go back to the corporate life. You have got good relationship with your ex-managers, ex-bosses. Maybe you lose out on that 1 or 2 years. That's the downside potential. Now, today the things are very, very different. Today, everyone wants to have people in the team who have got startup experience. So tables have turned totally from that perspective. But you can't overthink. To be honest, if you start thinking too much in terms of what will happen, what can go wrong, you can find excuse to do it. You can find excuse not to do it. Both sides. So somewhere you have to be little crazy to take that bet. You have to obviously ensure that you get support from your family because, the decision that you take will impact them as well. So you have to take them along. But my only advice is don't overthink if you have to do it. And if you are able to find an opportunity where you think putting 5-10 years of your life at that stage of your career is worth it, why not? एक ही तो जिंदगी है, तो try कर लो.
Okay. Tell us your story when you took the plunge. And I'm using the word plunge because 10 years ago it was indeed a plunge and a leap of faith. What inspired you to take that leap of faith? And for those who want to take a leap of faith now, today, has the scenario changed?
So it's already 9 years into PhonePe now. 9 years back when we started, doesn't seem long back, but it's been a sea change. If you look at how the internet ecosystem has evolved, how the startup ecosystem has evolved, and how the status, as Sanjeev was mentioning, of startups, the talent around startups, and the encouragement of the ecosystem, the policymakers, the regulators, etc., significantly changed. So for us, so PhonePe is actually my third stint as an entrepreneur. Started way back in 2009. That time, I think we had started with a media distribution business. we were actually powering music streams. And I remember my co-founder's father, Sameer's father, telling us, "Itna padhai karke gaane bechega?" That's what you were planning to do. And then we joined Flipkart, e-commerce took off. When we started PhonePe, it was with a very simple thought process that we had seen through e-commerce the frailty of the payment ecosystem and the fact that if India needs to actually transition into being a digital economy, payments at the infrastructure level needs to be solved. And that was the simple thinking, that if we are going to be able to solve payments at the infrastructure level, India is going to transition into the digital economy. We are going to be able to build something that is population level scale impact, and everything else, glory, money, etc. is secondary. The excitement was about solving that particular piece of the puzzle for transitioning India into the next stage, right? And we were actually building something like UPI before UPI came on board, and then UPI happened and it was love at first sight. I think none of that has changed for anybody who's looking at taking the leap of faith today. The beauty of where we stand as a country is that we continue to actually need to leapfrog because there are a lot of infrastructural hurdles or lack of infrastructure that poses a challenge but also gives an opportunity. From having the capital, it's never been a better time. I mean, the winters, as we call it, for funding will come and go, but the intent to actually back good ideas that are actually solving a problem, and problem are immense, there are many, is still there. Talent is at its peak. As a population, we are the most aspirational population that exists in the world today. So any sort of new idea, new solution that you put out there, the adoption rate is going to be immense. So I believe that there's never been a better time to be an entrepreneur in our country than today.
So startup is about identifying a problem, finding a way to fix it, and then how can you scale it, to put it very simply. Where is this big pot of honey in the economy or in India right now, where you would advise the audience here and back home, those who will be watching, that they can really take that leap of faith?
So I think from an economics perspective, right, there are two ways you can actually look at India. One is if you look at it from what we call as the consumer businesses or the consumer internet businesses. You have to be actually very, very careful and cognizant of the fact that India is a DAO country, which is daily active users, but daily active customers wise, it can be actually significantly lower. So it's razor thin margins at scale, and you have to be very, very cognizant about that fact and say that what are typically what we call as ARPU numbers, average revenue per user, that you may actually correlate for a similar solution out west will be nowhere close, right? And if you're able to actually prove out a unit economics at scale with the cost that it takes to actually plow the rails towards that, get into it. Otherwise, I think the opportunities have to be looked at from multiple niches, agri-tech, insure-tech, possibly actually building for financial inclusion of particular segments of society that are being left behind. Opportunities to build good, solid businesses, not being seduced by being the next PhonePe, which is at a significantly larger scale, but looking at problem spaces that are more niche, verticalized, and have great unit economics and also a need in society. I think that's the way to go.
Mr. Bikhchandani, some call you the poster boy of startup investing, some call you the grandfather of startup investing. I'll use the word OG. That's fashionable with startup, right? The OG of startup investing. So if someone has to make a pitch to the OG of startup investing, what would you look at? How many pitches do you hear on a daily basis? And when do you say no? Because the list of no for you is bigger than the list of yes.
And I made mistakes also. ऐसी बात नहीं है. I said no to Flipkart in the pre-series A without meeting them. I said no to Snapdeal at 28 million. I said no to Lenskart. I said no to Ola in the pre-series A, the seed round. So मैंने बड़े सारे wrong decisions लिए. Several of what we invested also did not do well. But you know what? The way to look at it is that if enough of the ones you've done are doing well, you come out on the plus side, and that's okay. Right? You can't regret the ones you missed, and it's okay. हो गया. Now, see, now what's happening is that because there's a team, the team meets the startups first. We look at 1,000 companies a quarter. We invest in 3 or 4. तो अगर 3-4 में इन्वेस्ट करते हैं तो मेरे पास आते होंगे 8-10, right? And the team is now capable enough and competent enough and committed enough to actually take decisions. So नाम मेरा आता है, काम उनका है, right? But that's the way of the world, yeah. I mean, it is really the team.
Alok, the same question to you. When you look at, I mean, even though Policy Bazaar has not made too many outside investments from their core, but if you have to identify the aha moment in the startup space, what would you look at in terms of in characters or in terms of a template?
See, and you're right, we typically do not want to invest or acquire. By nature, we are more build people and we want to do everything in-house. But from investing perspective, totally agree with what Sanjeev said. See, at a very early stage, you can just see what is the opportunity that the team is trying to target, whether it is the market size, whether it is the, the problem being solved, with the evolution of the society or the ecosystem or the value chain in that particular area is. But, there's a way to look at the opportunity. And the second one is this the best team to take a crack at that opportunity? And would they stick for next 5-10 years trying to solve for that opportunity? Bhag to nahi jayenge kal. These are the only things you can bet on. There is nothing else at that stage, to be honest. I always believe a founder who is willing to put 5-10 years, you can't really value that. Investor पैसे लगाते हैं, which is very, very good, but company founder की होती है. And if founders cannot believe that and drive that, and they need a lot of backseat driving from investors, then पहले दिन ही fail हो गया है. So, to have that trust that this is the team which is going to build it. And yes, if you cannot have that trust, then don't please invest because पहले दिन ही पैसा डूब जाएगा वो तो. So these are only two things. What is the opportunity being targeted, and is this a team which is the best shot at that opportunity?
Mr. Bikhchandani, when you started Naukri.com, you were able to identify the movement of unorganized job service providers and you made them digital. The similar, perhaps, thought was at place when you started other businesses like Jeevan Sathi or 99 Acres. But that was 15-20 years ago. What are the 2 or 3 trends which you see in the economy which are transpiring because of technology and other factors?
So, see, when we started Naukri, there were only 14,000 internet accounts in the country. We had no clue that the internet was going to become big. We had a simple goal. Ki if we can get 500 companies to pay us 1,000 rupees to list one job on the site and get 500 companies every month, तो साल का 60 लाख सेल हो जाएगा और 60 लाख सेल हो जाएगा तो हमारा 20 लाख प्रॉफिट बन जाएगा तो मैं तनख्वाह निकाल लूँगा. सिंपल गोल था. अब बड़ी कंपनी बनने का कोई इरादा नहीं था. वो बड़ी हो गई, वो दूसरी बात है. Today, when you look at investing, I mean, principles have not changed. Right? Are you solving an unsolved problem? Is there a hook? Is there will the customer want what this company is trying to do? If you can get a good handle on that, it was pretty clear to us that in Policy Bazaar, there was a massive hook. We invested pre-launch, but there was a massive hook. It was pretty clear in Zomato that they're doing something useful, they're getting traffic and traction. So we look for evidence of what we call natural traction. Usage हो रहा है, ये बढ़ रहा है without spending on advertising. You're onto something. Right? That's the first thing. Then, of course, quality of team, and then 20 other things. Right? So, that's what we look at. We do it bottom up, not top down. We don't identify a sector and say, "Isme karna hai." We don't think that works because we want to harness the imagination of 2 lakh entrepreneurs and not be limited by our own imagination. Ye sector hai, ye karna hai. Nahi. Sabse milo, then figure out what you think will work. Okay? We get it right sometimes, we get it wrong sometimes. We move on, right? But one thing is pretty clear to me today. About 9 months ago or 6 months ago, if you'd asked me what impact will AI have, I used to say, wait and watch, we don't know. we are in wait and watch mode. Pata nahi kya hoga. We are keeping an eye on it. Today, if you ask me, it is pretty clear AI will go everywhere. It is the thing. And it is analogous to as significant and impactful an event as the founding of the internet, according to me, Gen AI. It will go everywhere. Now you have to go into in a nuanced manner to figure out what impact will have on which sector, which company, and so on and so forth. But it will go everywhere. So we look for AI a lot right now.
And Rahul, this in a sense was a question which I would like to lean towards you, which is that AI resonates very well with the startup ecosystem. That's where I guess experimentation, that's where scaling up productivity gains are, coming in. Mr. Bikhchandani spoke about internet can be compared with internet. I can throw in more examples for our audience here. It is as critical as when GPS was invented. It is as critical as when steam engine was invented. As someone who is using AI directly, indirectly, who represents the startup space and also is in the fintech space, how do you see AI changing and what would be the permanent changes because of it?
Like Sanjeev has mentioned, I think it's going to have a significant amount of change, not just in the fintech and the payments industry, practically in every industry. Ultimately, it's a piece of technology, like you mentioned, highly, it is actually primitive today, but growing at a rate that is exponential, which is the part that is very different than a lot of the other technologies where they were primitive, they took their time, but the growth or the evolution of the technology, while it is primitive today, is exponential, and that's why I think it's a catch-up game for a lot of us. Today, you're going to look at it from a perspective of being a tool that is going to significantly increase efficiency on various aspects of the business, both internal as well as consumer-facing or client-facing. So it could be functions like all your corporate functions, getting significantly more streamlined, right from legal, finance, HR, etc. From a product perspective, obviously the customer support seems to be one of the areas that everybody is focusing on. As soon as you start getting significantly better with vernacular language in the multimodal Gen AI systems, you see that its penetration is even more and impactful within our country. As we move forward, I think what might change is that products might become AI first, which means effectively today it's being used as a tool to actually enhance existing experiences. Tomorrow you will have AI first experiences. You could have products that are insurance, could be AI first, where your interaction starts and ends with your AI bot or interface in a multimodal manner that may be the phone, may not be the phone, you don't know. Payments could actually go through that. So I think the transformation of this tool is going to be from efficiency driving to actually everything becoming AI first, right? And all industries will transform. Where we need to be careful though is like any tool, you can use it towards end, and how you choose that end really matters. For example, with financial inclusion, if we actually say that the goal is to increase financial inclusion and take credit to the new to credit market and use AI within that to determine who is really credit worthy or not is a great goal. But to say that let AI determine who all is credit worthy today might actually leave out a large part of the society. So that's just one example. I think how we deploy AI is going to matter a lot, because then you're going to actually either be inclusive in AI technology or you're going to leave out a large part of the population. I think that's the main concern that I have.
Alok, when the Indian IT services sector got incubated, the advantage which India had was that we had skill and we had scale. Now we are looking at AI, which in a sense is challenging the basic premise of IT services and skill and scale. So what would be the disruptive change because of AI for the entire ecosystem, which is a startup ecosystem?
See, it's not just about startup. Every function apart from the support function in the company can focus on only three things: how to increase revenue, how to be more efficient with cost, how to be better at service. And AI can impact all three. Today we are talking more about service and cost. Eventually it will come out from the revenue side also. It will make everything more efficient, definitely. Today, a lot of AI is actually not AI. I'm not a big fan of just calling things as AI unless it is solving a business problem. Eventually, a lot of times we are talking about enhanced analytics as AI. The real AI models are still a little far, to be honest. The way we use it in terms of our efficiency by building our own LLM models, we are able to do a lot of fraud control using, some deep AI stuff, which is more like face recognition, voice matching, some stuff. But, I actually believe AI is a very abused word today, the way it's been used, because it's actually more analytics and enhanced analytics. But it will have impact on everything. There are a lot of stories around what AI is going to deliver, but unless you are able to link it to a business use case, those are going to be just stories. So the driver has to be what is the problem being solved for? How do you make customers' life easier? How do you add value to the whole ecosystem? And AI is definitely a big part of that service delivery. But apne aap mein AI is another tool. Few years back we were talking about big data. Usse pehle kuch aur tha. But all these are used to solve a specific problem only, right? So AI is a great tool to be used in the right way. It is not the end all of everything. कि just because किसी company के पास AI के tools अच्छे हैं या फिर AI के resources अच्छे हैं तो सब कुछ हो जाएगा नहीं. Depends on lot of things. Like in insurance, the biggest thing is trust. वो trust के लिए AI use कर सकते हो, but AI trust build नहीं कर सकता, right? So it is as I said earlier, great tool to be used in the right way, but more fluff today than the reality. Let's wait for a few more years.
So we took the clock back 10 years ago. That time startups in India were nascent. Now they become center stage. 10 years forward, if we have to engage on the same forum, where do you see innovation and where do you see a big change happening?
See, again, a lot of tech solutions, it's very easy to get confused. There are two types of solutions being built in tech today. One is what are the rails. Like UPI is a great example of rails, access to databases, right? Huge amount of effort is being put by the government around a lot of these things. It is going to make everyone much more efficient. But UPI is a success because of PhonePe and a Paytm and a Google Pay, right? So eventually there has to be a front end also to utilize that rail. The biggest opportunity for startups is going to be how to utilize those rails which are being created, and those are getting created every day now. You talk about claim data, you talk about driver data, you talk about everything is going to be available for the businesses to make use of. But eventually you have to solve a customer problem using that rail. So, it's a great opportunity in next 10 years to actually solve some really deep customer problems. As Sanjeev said earlier, talent is there, capital is there, and if you have access to all these rails, why not? Yes, it's not going to be easy. Nothing is easy, but you can actually attempt to solve very big problems now because of this.
Mr. Bikhchandani, what we've spoken about is the opportunity, the great things that have happened, the success stories like a Zomato, the success story of Policy Bazaar or PB Fintech. But there's a data which says that 90% plus of the startups, they actually fail. Only 5% of the startups, they survive into the second year. And only 1% of the startups have made it to unicorn list, and then also they come cracking down. What should one be a bit wary of while investing in the startup world or while incubating a startup?
I think, is it solving a real problem? Is it building some IP? Can the founders really do it? Are customers paying? And are they paying more than the cost? These are some of the basic things of any business or commercial enterprise. So the basics of running a business have not changed. Environment may have evolved, technology may have evolved, but basics तो वही नहीं है. लोग ठीक है कि नहीं, मेहनत कर रहे हैं कि नहीं, customer को माल चाहिए कि नहीं, or are they spending more than they're earning? Can they spend less than they're earning continuously, or are they going to, where is break-even going to happen and when?
So I think it's been a fascinating session, Mr. Bikhchandani. I'm still hunting for the next Zomato from you.
I think we've been very lucky. Some of these are, Zomato policies, they are once in lifetime kind of investments, and we got them early in our investing journey. I think that's very lucky. And if you get a few more good ones, that'll be very fortunate.
Well, I hope, I wish you good luck. Alok ji, thank you very much. And it's such a pleasure to interact with you. Before I wrap, what is this about startup founders? They never wear a suit. हमेशा स्पोर्ट्स शूज पहन के ऑफिस में जाते हैं. Even investors के सामने भी पहन के जाते हैं.
It's just that that's the skin that we're most comfortable in.
Well, good luck, guys. Thank you very much. And like I said, that 10 years ago, this entire space was at an incubation stage. Today, it's become the center stage. And if India has to indeed march towards this entire trend, $10 trillion economy mark, I'm sure startups today will play a very large role. With that, let's put hands together for this lovely panel. And thank you very much.
Request all of you to stay with us for just a few moments on stage. We'd like to present you with a token of appreciation graciously offered by our luxury partner, Milano. And Nikunj, you'll have to do the honors, please. On your left.
A token of appreciation